Hi guys. So in this video I want to give you an update about my services app. Where I'm at right now, and just a little bit about the Swim framework and what I've learned so far about it. And so, as I said before, I've already implemented the API. It's a really simple API, but it was really easy to implement with, and I'm really happy with it. I can show you right now what I've got so far. So, okay, let me show you also the app. Okay, yeah. Just to show you, I create the API according to the use case that I have in the app. The request that I need to make, so that I can show you easily. So this is the app once again, and what we have in the app is that the user will be able to search for the service that he's looking for. So I need an API, I need a request to search for services. Then the user can search for a location, the location where he wants the service. So another endpoint that I need. So search for a location. And then the app returns a whole list of companies that perform that service in that location. So I need also an endpoint to get companies according to the selected service and the location. These are the three main endpoints for the user. And then I would also need another endpoint for the professional, in this case not the regular user, but a user that wants to register as a professional to register in the app. And so I will need, I have this form where he needs to fill in the business title, the description. He also needs to look to search for services. So he can select the services that his company is able to perform and also search for location and a phone number, an email, and a website. So this is another endpoint that I needed to create. So I have all these endpoints working so far. Let me show you here on Postman. Okay, I'm using Postman to test the API. I really like Postman. Right now I'm using the web version because I don't know, I have the app, the desktop client installed, but it's not working properly. I don't know why. So right now I'm using the web version and it's working okay. So I'm gonna go with it. And so you can see I have all the endpoints here. So I have a get services and also an add service. I created this one despite I'm not gonna use it in the app, but I might use it for me to enter new data into the database instead of going to the database manually inserting the data. I have a get locations and an add location, and I have a get companies and an add company. So let me just show you. Okay, get services. So it receives a parameter, a search parameter with the keywords, what the user, in this case, what the user is typing. So let's, for example, see what it returns for this. Wim. Oh, it's not returning anything yet. But this is because yesterday when I woke up, I remember, I don't know why I was thinking about this, but I remember that I need a new parameter in the search for the services and in the search for the locations. Because when a user, a regular user, is searching for services that he wants to perform, I must only return companies. I must only return services that are already connected to a company. So what happens right now is that I have like, I don't know, 800 or 900 services already in the database, because when a professional is going to register, he needs to have a whole list of services that he can choose from. But when the user searches for services, I cannot show them services that are not connected to a company. Otherwise, you would go through the whole process and then would not have any results at the end. And I only remembered this yesterday morning. So I added a new parameter where I can ask the API to return me all services, that exist or not, that exist, or just to show me services that are connected to a company. So in this case, by default, the API will only return services that have a company associated with, which is why I search for this, and it's returning empty because I still don't have any companies in the database. But if I turn on this whole parameter, then it will return all the services that exist. So in this case, I would use this parameter for the register form, and this one is the default one for the user. And the same for the location, because it's the same thing. I can only return locations that, now that I'm thinking about the locations, I should also pass the service, because I will not. Yeah, okay, sorry, I'm just thinking out loud right now, but now I'm thinking, because the user is selecting the service first and then the location, when I'm asking for locations, probably I'll need to indicate which service is already selected, because I can only return locations that have a company associated with and that perform that service. Not, yeah, okay, so something to do. I just remember right now, sorry. Um, Then I have get companies. The get companies already accepts the service ID and the location ID. So probably what I will do here in the get location is, despite the get location, yeah, despite the search keywords, I'm gonna add the service ID, which I will use to filter the locations as well. And the add company is just a simple form where I pass the title, the description, a phone number, email, website, and I pass a string with the service IDs. So I'll pass like service 1, service 2, service 3, and various locations where a company can perform these services. So like, for example, just send this, and of course, since I'm showing you guys it doesn't work. Why? Oh, foreign key. Oh, I have a, yeah, it's because of a foreign key constraint. Okay, I need to check this. I'm not gonna fix this right now. It was working. I can tell you guys that it was working before, but now it's not working, of course. Oh yeah, it worked. Oh, okay, yeah, it worked. So you can see here that it inserted the company. The problem was creating probably these ones. Yeah, these are the many-to-many tables to make the relationship between the companies and the services and the companies and the locations, because each company can have one or more services and each service will belong to one or more companies. So I had to create these intermediary tables to make that many-to-many relations. And because of some foreign key that I did here, it's not working properly. So I'll have to check that. And this is what I've got so far in terms of the REST API. And this is the whole API, I think. I mean, I don't need anything else as far as I can remember. And now let me show you the Swim framework. So how I implemented this API. So this is the second time I'm working with the Swim framework. The first time I already used it on a couple apps before, but to be honest, I never really got the time to really understand the framework. It was just like I hacked my way to make it work, and it worked. It was like these small apps that I'm working that I was developing at the time, and so it worked. I didn't worry about it, but every time I needed to start a new app or something like with the Swim framework, it was like, I don't want to touch that because I had no idea how it's working. And so this time I wanted to make it different, and I actually went to the documentation and tried to understand the whole structure of the framework. And I'm really happy because it made my life a lot easier, because they have like this cool structure that I really like, and I'm gonna go over right now. And I think it works really well because they separate the whole framework in these entities that have that follow the single responsibility principle. So each entity is responsible for one task and one task only, which is really easy to test, to debug, everything. So just a quick overview. Like I said, it's the first time that I'm working with this framework, actually working with how it's implemented. So you have the Swim that handles routing and dispatching. Then you have single action controllers, and these don't deal with any business logic. The only thing they do is they receive the request, they ask someone to handle with the business logic, and they receive the results and send the response back. That's what the single action controller does. Once again, single responsibility principle. So they only deal with this and nothing more. And who deals with the business logic of the app, of this case, the API. It's in the domain, which is the core layer of our application, and the domain has services and repositories. So the services are the ones that handle with the business logic, and the repositories are the ones that execute database queries. So basically, every time we want to create an endpoint, we have, oh, sorry, my dogs are like crazy. Yeah, I know. Being dogs, yeah, I know. So when we create a new endpoint, the endpoint will communicate with the action in turn communicates with the service, and the service communicates with the repository. And it's always this structure. So let me show you an example of this. So I have on the config directory, I have the routes file, and here I have all the routes that I've created. Let me just take this out of here. I don't need this. Okay, yeah. Here I have all the routes. You can see it. So services, get services, post services, get locations, post, and post companies, and get companies. The ones that I showed you before. And what I do, for example, for the services, get services, I tell the service search action. So the route calls an action. I'm really sorry, but my dogs are crazy. Oh yeah, it's gonna end in a minute. Sorry, I should crop this video. I know I should cut this video and start over again or something, but I won't do it. So let's just wait. Yeah, okay, it's cool. So the get endpoint calls the service search action, and so we have an action. I have the service search action here, and in turn, the service search action will call a service. So I have a service called service search, calls the service and calls the search method, and passes the parameters of the that comes in the request into the service. So once again, the action just receives the request, asks someone to handle the request, and waits for the results to send the response. And then we have the response, get body, write. We write the result in the response and send it with headers and status code and everything. So the action communicates with the service, and the service we have here service search, which has a search method, accepts the parameters. Now the service is the one responsible for validating the parameters, so he's the one responsible for seeing if the parameters are correct, are valid. I mean, if they are there when they are necessary, and if they are in the correct form or whatever. So right now I'm seeing if it has a search parameter, which we need to have, and if it has all parameters. I'm just assuming that if the parameter doesn't come at all, so it's false. It is like the default behavior. And then the service will call the repository, and it's the repository that actually does the interaction with the database. So we have the service search repository, which creates the query, executes the query, and returns the results. So the repositories communicate with the database, the service handles the business logic, and the action just handles the request and the response. This is like the entity relationship that I have going on in the framework. So the service search will call the search, will send the parameters, and then I'm just creating a new object. I also created a service data object to handle the results from the database into a proper object where I can change the name of the columns and everything. And so I'll just process the results, create all the services, return the services to the action, and the action in turn just writes in JSON in the response and sends it back. And this is like an overview of the entity relationship in the framework that I'm really happy to work with. You know, like it's really easy. Of course, when this is a really easy API, so I understand that it might look a little too much for the API that I'm creating, because this is a really simple API. I could have done this all in just one method probably, but I understand. And then we have like, we need to create an action, a service, and a repository for each individual endpoint. And this is something that first it seemed like a little bit too much, because I have company create, company search, service create, service search, and then I have the service and the repository for each one of these endpoints, which are a lot of files. But it seemed a little too much, but I totally understand that with more complex APIs and business logic, this should be really handy, because you can reuse services, reuse the repositories, and so I understand why it's made this way. At least this is my understanding of it. I mean, the first time that I'm using the framework with this, following these relationships, but I'm happy with it. And this is the API, so the API is done. And I've also implemented the API. Sorry, it's here. I've also implemented the API already in Flutter, and I wanted to show you guys, but it's not working. And it's not working. Why? Because I'm using a WAMP server. In the local host, I'm using a WAMP server and with virtual hosts. So my API is right now, you can see here, I'm pointing the API to HTTP api.services.localhost, which is a virtual host that I have configured in my machine. Now the problem is that when we run the app in the emulator, when you run the app in the Android emulator, it cannot by default connect with our local host, with our virtual hosts. And yesterday, I found a way to change the host file in the emulator so I would be able to communicate with the virtual host that I have set up in my machine. And it worked, and I was really happy, because okay, yeah, so this is what I want. Every time I need to do something like this, I'll just change the host file, just like I do in the computer. But then I understood that I had to reboot the emulator, and I understood that after rebooting the emulator, it stopped working. So it seems that I have to change the host file again, or every time I'm going to work with the emulator, I need to change the host file, and that is not a valid solution. So I'll probably need to understand how I'm going to solve this. I still don't know, and I'm not going to waste some time with it right now. And that's it. I mean, that's the Swim framework. That's my API. I probably need to change a lot of things and refactor a lot of things too. So, but right now I'm just worried about making it work, like really quick and really easy, so I can just play around with Flutter as well. And probably on the next lesson, I'll go over the Flutter, where I'm at with Flutter, what I've created, what problems did I had or not, what I learned so far in Flutter, and that's it. So thank you guys. See you in the next video.